The story begins inside a luxurious VIP delivery room where a woman is casually flipping through a magazine, waiting to give birth. But her patient snaps, and she angrily yells at the nurses to hurry up and get the baby out, all while still focused on her magazine. Moments later, the sound of a baby's cry fills the room. A staff member rushes out, joyfully congratulating the grandfather. Guests gather around, offering their congratulations to Mr. Liu, who thanks them graciously for their kindness. Curious, he asks one of the maids about Shikuan's whereabouts, only to hear that the young master is busy handling something on Earth. His expression darkens immediately, furious at his son's absence and calling him a worthless good-for-nothing. Suddenly, a strange, piercing scream echoes from inside the delivery room, leaving everyone startled and uneasy. Mr. Liu quickly stands up, anxious, and demands to know what is happening inside. Inside the room, the mother's eyes widen in shock as a blinding light bursts forth. When the grandfather and his attendants rush in, they are stunned, frozen in disbelief. The dazzling light is coming from the newborn itself, his tiny body wrapped in arcs of golden lightning. To everyone else, it's a miracle, but to the baby, it's something else entirely. In his mind, he smirks, thinking no one would ever believe that a simple commoner like him would be reborn into such a powerful family, awakening with a divine sense. A system screen flickers before his eyes, confirming the activation of a lightning-type divine sense, already reaching sea-level power. The grandfather can hardly believe what he is witnessing. His grandson is born with an innate power he himself could never achieve. His cane slips from his hand as he shouts in astonishment about this unmatched divine talent. Overcome with joy, he lifts the newborn high and declares to all present that the Liu clan has given birth to a once-in-a-generation prodigy. Yet deep inside, the baby harbors his own ambition. He vows to seize everything from this clan and make sure his so-called father never gets another chance at life. Meanwhile, the maids whisper among themselves, amazed that the young master is smiling instead of crying, an omen, they say, of an extraordinary destiny. The elder proudly vows to dedicate the full strength of the clan to raising this child. Yet, our protagonist's mind, thoughts stir. He reflects on the past 6 months since being killed by that vile scumbag, still feeling as if it were all a dream. Just a month ago he was killed by her husband. And reborn as her baby in her belly, she who was now his mother had been drinking a special tonic prepared by one of her loyal maids. The moment the liquid touched her lips, a powerful golden glow began to radiate from her body. Because of this, he gained an extraordinary gift, an accelerated growth ability, and astonishingly, he had already reached D rank even while still in the womb. He couldn't help but marvel at how vast the difference was between powerful clans and commoners. Ordinary people would risk their very lives for the strength he now casually possessed before even being born. But this ability puzzled him. Accelerated growth? There were no known records of such an ability. 2 months later, he found himself in the middle of a dangerous absorption crisis caused by the mother's original embryo. But fortune favored him. Using his accelerated growth, he consumed the original embryo completely and absorbed its power, gaining an innate lightning-type divine sense. Lightning, a rare and formidable element. The thought thrilled him. He vowed to take full advantage of his family's endless resources, nurturing his own body and power until he stood at the very peak. 3 months later, his lightning divine sense had already advanced to an intermediate stage. Meanwhile, an entirely different scene unfolded in the world outside his tiny sanctuary. Women's high heels and scattered underwear littered the floor of his mother's bedroom. On the bed, tangled feet and warm whispers filled the air. His mother lay there with a blonde-haired man, unbothered by the fact she was carrying a child. The man questioned her nervously, asking if she wasn't afraid. She responded coolly, saying her marriage was nothing but a political arrangement. Yet, inside her womb, the fetus, our protagonist, heard everything. The blonde-haired man doubted if the child was even his while the woman ignored his words and passionately urged him to keep going. The noise and chaos of his mother and her secret lover shook the unborn child's energy. Absorption, frustrating him deeply. In irritation, he released a burst of energy that made his mother gasp, complaining it burned her from the inside. By the 6th month, his power had already reached peak D rank, and he came to fully understand the unique constitution of his mother. One day, a handsome man stood silently, gazing at the woman's belly, impatience in his eyes as he wondered when the child would finally be born. From within, the unborn child opened his eyes and glared at the man with seething hatred. His mind branded the man as nothing more than a filthy mutt. Suddenly, a memory from his previous life flashed before him. He recalled the day he was warned about terrifying beasts. One of his comrades, gravely injured, had pleaded with him, calling him Brother Liu, to escape while he still could. The companion cried for help, trapped and desperate, but all the young man could do was stand and watch. That day, his friend was torn apart by a monstrous creature, his screams echoing as the beast devoured him whole, while Liu stood frozen, watching every moment. With a twisted grin, the traitor gives the order, feed the beast and form the spirit core. His eyes gleam with malice as he watches the scene, enjoying every second of his victim's despair. In that moment, the young man notices it, a massive spike hurtling toward him with deadly intent. Before he can react, his former companion drives a huge branch straight through his chest, lifting him into the air without an ounce of mercy. He looks down at the gaping wound, unable to comprehend the betrayal he's just suffered. Laughter erupts from the scumbag, sharp and mocking, echoing in the air as he revels in the moment. He sneers, saying this is what happens when fools overestimate their own strength. The young man is thrown aside like garbage, his body broken. With fading strength, he accuses the traitor of using him as nothing more than bait to feed the beasts. As darkness closes in, only one thought grips his mind: what will become of his little sisters? Memories rush back, him saying goodbye to one of them, promising he would return soon. He recalls grabbing his weapon and stepping out for what seemed like just another mission, leaving behind 3 innocent girls waiting in that small house. That night, under the pale glow of the moon, the sisters stared through the window, whispering to each other about when their big brother would finally come home. Back in the present, within the womb, the reborn protagonist seethes with rage. His heart burns with a single vow: to destroy the one who tore him away from his family. Gathering his energy, even as a fetus, he focuses his power and launches a devastating punch toward the outside. The blow connects, slamming into his so-called father's face with a force no one could have expected. The man is flung backward, crashing to the ground in agony, utterly stunned by the invisible strike. After that, the mother gasped in pain as the child in her belly suddenly started kicking from inside. Meanwhile, the traitorous father writhes on the floor, clutching his face, still unable to comprehend what just happened. The woman groans in frustration, complaining that the child is already causing trouble before even being born. Concerned, the grandfather quickly orders the nurse to check what is going on inside the delivery room. The nurse hesitates for a moment, then explains that the young master's talent is extraordinary, which has caused his development to accelerate far beyond normal. Suddenly, she stops mid-sentence, shocked as she realizes the baby is about to be born. The mother, writhing in pain, screams for someone to summon the best delivery team immediately. Inside the womb, the boy laments, thinking about how in his past life his strength had only reached peak D level, and now, even before birth, he is already on the edge of a breakthrough. A month later, the Liu family hosts a grand banquet in celebration of the newborn. Influential families from across southern Shao arrive with extravagant gifts, eager to honor the clan's future heir. Amid the festivities, the grandfather sits quietly, watching a violin performance with a maid standing at his side. Meanwhile, the 1-month-old protagonist rests peacefully in the arms of another maid, completely calm despite the noisy celebration. A guest steps forward, congratulating Master Leo on his grandson. The elder nods politely, though his thoughts seem far away. Another guest approaches the boy's father, offering him congratulations as well. But the infant's sharp gaze locks onto that man, the same man who betrayed him in his past life. Anger wells up within the baby. This is the very person who tore him away from his sisters. Right there and then, he silently vows revenge. Memories flood back. His little sisters' faces beam with joy as they prepare to share a small birthday cake, their eyes sparkling with excitement. In his past life, he had been on the phone with brother Chen, who was impatient and scolding him for being late to a mission. He apologized, but Chen only scoffed, secretly thinking he'd hired him just because rumors claimed he was desperate for money. Chen advised him to use his brain better, and the young man thanked him for the job opportunity anyway. Back home, his sisters waited eagerly for him to return so they could finally taste the cake. He had said goodbye to one of them, promising he'd only be gone for work and would be back soon. With that, he grabbed the weapon stored in his bag and stepped out, leaving the 3 little girls alone, waiting anxiously for his return. That night, they sat by the window, looking at the moon, whispering their wish for their big brother to come home quickly. Elsewhere, in a shadowy forest, a mysterious glowing portal shimmers. A man approaches, cigarette dangling from his lips. It's the same man who had congratulated young Master Ji earlier at the banquet, young Master Ji himself, the apparent leader of some dangerous, secretive operation. Surrounded by his loyal subordinates, young Master Ji calmly asks about the progress of their mission. One of his men quickly reports that they've been inside for some time and the beasts should be well fed by now. Pleased, young Master Ji compliments old Chen, praising how efficiently he works and noting he must have been raised well. Turning to the woman beside him, he states that this entire trip was done for her sake. But she only scoffs, mocking him as nothing more than another lowlife from the Ji family, desperate to climb the social ladder. Ignoring the insult, the group of traitors heads toward the glowing portal, preparing to leave that barren, desolate place behind. Meanwhile, in another part of the wasteland, one of the hero's companions urgently warns him of a dangerous beast nearby. To their surprise, young Master Ji is informed someone has survived the earlier massacre, something he didn't expect. He smirks, mentioning that more food will be useful for their medicine. Old Chen frowns, confused, explaining that everyone they encountered was only D-level soldiers. How could anyone still be alive? Suddenly, a deafening noise echoes through the area, drawing every eye in one direction. Their leader's expression hardens as he assesses the situation. Soon, the source of the commotion is revealed, a beast with a fresh wound in its leg, glaring at a lone figure. There he is, the young man, battered and exhausted, standing his ground for what might be his final battle. One of the traders cautiously steps forward, but young Master Ji demands to know who dared injure his beast. Then his eyes widen in recognition. He knows the survivor. Yen, he says in shock. The young man turns his head, confused, calling out to brother Chen, still trying to understand what's happening. Chen's friend nervously asks if he had brought reinforcements, and in a panic, several enemies scatter and flee from the scene. Back in the present timeline, the reborn baby clenches his tiny fists, vowing to avenge that deep blood feud. He reaches his arms out, making soft baby noises at the trader now standing in front of him. The man freezes, speechless, unable to comprehend what the child wants. The baby's father proudly explains that his son wants to be held, calling it the greatest honor of his life. With that, the trader cautiously picks up the child, even thanking him for what he calls an unexpected reward. The little one lets out a pretend cry, masking his true intention. In an instant, yellow lightning energy bursts from his tiny body, shocking the trader with a surge of power. The man screams in agony as electricity courses through him, forcing his hands to release their grip. The baby falls hard onto the mansion's floor, the loud thud drawing gasps from the women at the party and halting the music mid-performance. All eyes turn toward the scene. The grandfather watches silently, his expression unreadable, while the baby's parents stand frozen, shocked at what just unfolded. On the floor, the child immediately cries loudly, keeping up his innocent facade and fooling everyone around him. The trader, now drenched in cold sweat, trembles in panic, realizing how badly things have gone wrong. Terrified by what had just happened, the trader freezes in fear. The grandfather's face twists in rage as he shouts, furious that someone dared to drop the Liu family's precious heir on the floor. The coward immediately throws himself down, groveling at their feet. He desperately claims it wasn't his fault, insisting the young master moved on his own. But the baby's father doesn't believe a word. With a glare filled with contempt, he delivers a brutal kick to the man's chest, calling him nothing but a dog. The impact sends the trader crashing across the marble floor, groaning in pain. Crawling on his hands and knees, he begs for forgiveness, swearing he would never harm the boy intentionally. As proof of loyalty, he even offers up his treasures to ensure the young master's injuries are treated. But instead of sympathy, the baby's father gives him a cold, mocking smile, clearly enjoying his humiliation. With an icy tone, he orders the guards to drag the man outside and give him a proper beating. Pathetically, the trader thanks him for the punishment, trembling as the guard sees him. Meanwhile, a maid carefully lifts the baby back into her arms. Hidden against her shoulder, the infant protagonist curls his lips into an evil, satisfied smirk at how perfectly his little plan worked. The trader, now bruised and dazed, stares in confusion, unable to comprehend how everything had spiraled so quickly. But the clever child immediately starts wailing again, crying loudly to maintain his perfect innocent facade. The old trader stumbles in shock, unable to believe the child switched back to crying so easily. The grandfather wastes no time, ordering the maid to take the young master inside and check if he suffered any injuries from the fall. Once the child is taken away, the elder turns his cold gaze to his son, sharply criticizing him. With their family status, he says, there's no need to keep worthless bums around. His words sting deeply, and with a dismissive snort, the patriarch storms out of the party, furious at the disgraceful scene. The boy's father clenches a wine glass so hard in his grip that it shatters in his bare hand, blood dripping from his palm. His rage boils over as he lashes out, delivering a brutal kick straight into the trader's face. Not stopping there, he kicks him again before ordering the guards to drag him outside and feed him to the house dogs. The trader's pleas for mercy fall on deaf ears as he's hauled away like trash. The host then calmly tells the stunned guests to continue enjoying the party, while the baby quietly plans how to absorb more power and grow stronger. A doctor is summoned to examine the infant, quickly confirming that the child's body is incredibly resilient and perfectly unharmed. Hearing this, the grandfather bursts into laughter, proudly celebrating that his grandson is safe and strong. But for the young protagonist, there is something far more important than family pride, finding the 3 sisters he left behind in his previous life. He knows he must grow quickly, fast enough to move on his own and claim the essence he needs. For now, though, he begins crying for milk, signaling for nourishment. The elder immediately orders the daughter-in-law to breastfeed the child and ensure she consumes more spiritual medicine to improve her health. The mother, exhausted and pale, complains that she had just fed him moments ago. Still, the patriarch is unmoved, sternly telling her that she must endure this hardship for the sake of the clan and their heir. With visible frustration, she removes her coat and picks up the child, preparing to feed him once again against her will. As she stares down at her son with tired, red eyes, she begins to breastfeed him. But even through her fatigue, she can't help but groan in pain, complaining that the little rascal is sucking far too hard. Seeing his daughter-in-law becoming pale and weak, the grandfather immediately orders tonic soup to be brought for her nourishment. Soon after, the scene shifts to a hot spring where the baby is bathing with his mother. She sighs in exhaustion, complaining that he's been feeding endlessly and jokingly asks if she must have owed him a debt in a past life. 3 months pass, and the baby has grown rapidly, now crawling all over the house with surprising speed. His power has already reached sea level, a pace that astonishes even him. In his previous life, reaching such strength took him an entire year, advancing from elementary D level to intermediate only after surviving dangerous portal missions and suffering numerous injuries. But this time, drinking his mother's milk has pushed him from elementary C level to intermediate in just 3 short months. During one family dinner, the little protagonist crawls determinedly toward the main table. The grandfather, irritated, scolds the staff for letting the heir roam freely. The maid quickly apologizes, explaining that the boy crawls so fast she can't keep up with him. The baby's father jokes that his son must simply want more milk, while the mother looks drained and complains she's been breastfeeding nonstop for 3 months without rest. But in the baby's mind, he's focused, there's no time to waste, he must keep getting stronger, no matter what. To everyone's shock, the infant suddenly stands up on his own, wobbling but steady. The grandfather and butler stare wide-eyed at this incredible sight. Then, to their amazement, he begins walking, his tiny feet taking steps toward his stunned mother. Without warning, he leaps at her, making her yelp as she scolded him, begging to at least let her eat one meal in peace. The maid, stunned, exclaims that the young master is standing and walking by himself, while the butler remarks on the child's extraordinary celestial constitution. The grandfather beams with pride, pleased beyond words by his grandson's rapid development. He then declares it is time to follow family tradition, selecting a personal servant for the boy. In a dark chamber, preparations are underway for the selection. The elder in charge asks for an update, and a guard reports that only 2 candidates remain. Soon, the protagonist, nestled in his mother's arms, is brought to an improvised arena where the final test will take place. He watches carefully, but then freezes, his eyes widening in shock. Among the candidates, he recognizes one of them. Inside the arena, a small girl with white hair stands in a defensive stance, her expression filled with fear. Opposite her, a blonde girl charges aggressively, shouting as she prepares to strike. The baby's mind races. What is she doing here? His body reacts instinctively, glowing with intense light as he activates his lightning-type divine power. In an instant, a bolt of energy arcs out, striking the blonde fighter. She is blasted off her feet, crashing to the ground and knocked out cold, leaving everyone stunned by the unexpected display. The white-haired girl wastes no time, lunging forward and snatching up the bread. Without hesitation, she devours it hungrily, crouched in the middle of the cell as if the world around her doesn't exist. Watching from his crib, the baby protagonist stiffens in panic, praying no one notices anything strange about what just happened. But instead of suspicion, the grandfather bursts into hearty laughter, declaring that his grandson has far more fighting spirit than his own father ever did. The baby sighs in relief, thinking that being a child definitely has its perks. Adults always find a way to excuse his behavior. The elder then decides on the spot that the little girl will serve as the young master's personal attendant. He orders that she be cleaned up and taught proper etiquette. The girl, however, doesn't seem to care about appearances, still eating ferociously as though nothing else matters. Meanwhile, the baby beams happily from his crib, calling out to his new servant with a wide grin. The butler steps forward, explaining the details of her role. She is a death servant, meaning her sole purpose is to protect the young master at any cost. The white-haired girl simply nods, silently accepting her new fate. The butler added that she needed to follow the master constantly and train in martial arts while her master slept. Soon after, the butler left, closing the door while the girl stayed in the baby's room to begin her new duties. The young protagonist excitedly calls to her and points at himself with a big, innocent smile. But instead of showing loyalty, she pulls out a knife, her expression twisting into one of pure hatred and vengeance. The baby freezes in panic, struggling to speak but unable to make more than baby sounds. The girl hisses through clenched teeth that she will end his life to avenge her older brother's death. With a sharp movement, she lunges, knife poised to strike the defenseless infant. But in a shocking display of agility, the baby dodges the blow, leaping out of the crib and leaving behind a shimmering energy afterimage. The girl's eyes widen in disbelief as he suddenly reappears at her side, moving far faster than she ever imagined a newborn could. As she regains her stance, a green aura bursts from her body, wind energy swirling around her. The protagonist is stunned to realize she wields a rare wind-type divine sense. She charges, wind slicing through the air, but he reacts instantly, summoning his lightning power to defend himself. The clash of wind and lightning fills the room with dazzling flashes of color, the energies colliding in a blinding storm. Inside, the baby grits his teeth, thinking how overwhelming it is to use this much power in such a fragile body. Suddenly, an idea sparks in his mind. Instead of overpowering her, he channels his thunder divine sense at the lowest possible level, forming a tiny lightning spear. It strikes her directly, sending a surge through her body that paralyzes her on the spot. The girl collapses to the ground, her body trembling as the electricity still dances across her nerves. The baby breathes a sigh of relief, though visibly exhausted from the effort. Meanwhile, the girl lies there, stunned, her body still twitching from the electric shock. The baby approaches cautiously, reaching for the sharp edge of the knife. With deliberate intent, he pricks his tiny finger, letting a single drop of blood roll down. Using it, he quickly scrawls a message on the floor, proud of his quick thinking and ability to communicate despite his limitations. The white-haired girl glances down and stares at the message, finally understanding its meaning. The baby then stretches his arms wide, signaling for a hug, hoping to show he means no harm. But she charges at him again. Only then does he remember, she can't read yet. Dodging swiftly, he panics, knowing that if anyone sees her attacking him, her fate will be sealed. Meanwhile, down the hall, the traitor walks through the mansion holding a wooden box tightly in his hands. A flashback plays in his mind, the man coldly telling him that he's only alive because he's still useful. Grateful yet humiliated, the man had bowed, thanking the young master for his mercy and vowing to work harder. He had spent everything he owned to buy a rare item at auction, desperate to earn the baby's favor and save his own skin. Now, as he nears the nursery, he hears the sound of the young master's voice and pauses, curiosity sparking. What could be happening inside? Pushing the door open, he steps in, calling out the name of the Liu family heir. But the sight before him makes him freeze. The baby and the girl are darting around the room, chasing one another in chaos. Sensing an opportunity, the infant protagonist's eyes darken with a cunning glint. A plan forms instantly. Grabbing the servant's hand mid-swing, he redirects the knife, channeling a surge of lightning directly into her forehead. The shock makes her body seize, and she collapses onto the rug, unconscious. Seizing the moment, the baby snatches the falling knife from the air and, without hesitation, plunges it into his own shoulder. Blood sprays as he completes his twisted yet perfect setup. The traitor stares in shock, unable to comprehend what he's seeing, and screams in terror. The baby then tosses the bloody knife directly at him. Instinctively, the man catches it, staring in horror at the blood-stained blade now in his hand. In his shock, he fumbles, dropping the precious wooden box he had brought as an offering. The baby, not wasting a second, takes a deep breath and unleashes a loud, heart-wrenching wail, collapsing dramatically on top of the unconscious girl. By the time the others rush into the room, led by the grandfather, the traitor is standing there, trembling, holding a bloodied knife, the white-haired servant unconscious on the floor, and the baby crying in pain. The elder and his son stand frozen, their faces tense as they take in the chaotic scene. The baby keeps up his loud crying, clinging to the fainted servant as if shielding her. The grandfather's fury erupts instantly. He points at the traitor, accusing him of daring to attack the Liu family heir. In a panic, the man throws the bloody knife to the floor and desperately tries to defend himself, insisting it's not what it looks like. But the baby's father doesn't buy it. His fist connects with the man's face, knocking him back as he roars about harming his son. Choking back panic, the traitor blurts out that the girl was the one who attacked, and he only acted to protect the baby. Still, the infant keeps up his tearful performance, while the accused man bleeds and pleads, his voice breaking with desperation. He swears to the elder he's telling the truth, but his words fall on deaf ears. The father's patience snaps again, another punch lands squarely on the man's jaw, followed by a furious demand, "Where's the gift you brought?" Scrambling, the traitor searches frantically for the box he had dropped amid the chaos. Meanwhile, the elder praised the unconscious white-haired girl for risking her life to protect his grandson, and orders the staff to take her away and let her rest. Placing a heavy hand on his own son's shoulder, the elder glares, his crimson eyes burning with rage. His voice drips with contempt as he says he taught his son how to raise dogs, yet he nearly lost the family's greatest hope because of one. As everyone leaves the room, the traitor remains kneeling, trembling as a cold sweat breaks across his forehead. The baby's father stops at the doorway and throws one last look of pure hatred and disgust. He kicks the man to the ground, spitting out, "I gave you a chance, and you still dared to betray me." With one sharp command, he orders the man to be dragged out and fed to the dogs. In his crib, the infant protagonist finally exhales in relief, his plan worked flawlessly. But then his eyes shift to the unconscious servant, worry flickering across his face. The butler steps in, announcing he must take the girl for treatment. Panic grips the baby as he remembers, the message he wrote in blood is still beneath her. He throws himself across her body and shakes his head furiously, trying to stop the butler. Instead, the staff simply lifts the young master away and places him gently back into his crib. The boy's eyes dart nervously as he debates shocking the butler with lightning to keep him from seeing the message. But then, an idea strikes him, and he glances toward the maid, silently forming a backup plan. The butler lifts the servant, revealing an unexpected pool of blood beneath her. The baby freezes in shock. She's not just acting, she's truly hurt. Even the butler hesitates, taken aback by the blood soaking her clothes. Confused, the infant wonders how she could have been injured for real. Still, the butler hurries her out of the room and orders the mess cleaned immediately. Alone now, the boy lies back in his crib, releasing a long breath of relief, though his mind lingers on the unanswered questions. For now, though, he pushes it aside, he has more important things to do. He leaps out of the crib, ready to set his next plan in motion. In another room, warm oil is being prepared for his mother, who enjoys a rare moment of peace as one of the maids massages her back. The calm doesn't last long, her relaxation is shattered by the sound of her baby calling for milk again. The little one crawls straight to her, earning an exhausted groan as she complains about his relentless appetite. She cradles him anyway, but sighs, asking how long he plans to keep feeding like this. The baby ignores her frustration, he needs strength, and fast. Every sip is one step closer to speaking, one step closer to explaining everything to his servant and continuing his revenge plan. A week passes in the luxurious Liu family mansion, and time feels like it's slipping by in a blink. In what seems like no time at all, our main character now looks like a 3-year-old and has finally mastered speaking. The little white-haired servant girl still watches him with sharp, suspicious eyes. In her mind, he's still the one responsible for what happened to her older brother. Then, without any warning, the boy turns to her and quietly tells her something that shakes her to the core: he's her brother. The girl freezes on the spot, her entire body stiffening as her eyes slowly turn a deep shade of red. He then softly asks if the cake her brother bought for her was tasty. That simple question sends her mind spiraling into the past. She remembers her brother calling her and her sisters over to share a cake. The 3 little girls lit up with excitement the moment they saw the birthday cake in front of them. Her brother sliced pieces for his little sisters, smiling warmly, but soon got a call ordering him to join his team for a mission. One of the sisters tried to sneak a piece early, only for another to stop her, insisting they wait until their brother returned. Later that night, the 3 sat by the window, gazing at the moon, waiting for him to come back. In that moment, his old face appeared in the reflection of the full moon, blending seamlessly with his current childlike features. His eyes softened, a gentle smile forming as tears began to gather. When she realizes the truth, her emotions overwhelm her. Tears spill down her cheeks, and she collapses to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. The boy quickly covers her mouth, urging her to be quiet so no one will discover their secret. His small hands try to muffle her cries, but the emotion is too strong. Without hesitation, she wraps her arms tightly around him, holding on as if afraid he'll disappear. Her voice trembles as she asks if the little boy before her is truly her beloved brother. But his tiny body struggles under the pressure of her grip, and he lets out a breathless complaint. In this small frame, her hug is almost too much for him to handle. She finally releases him. Our guy sways a little, still trying to catch his breath. Once the dizziness fades, his gaze hardens as he locks eyes with his sister. He needs answers. He grabs her shoulders and demands to know how she ended up in this place, and where their other sisters are. His questions come one after another, too fast for her to keep up. Overwhelmed, she pleads with him to slow down. Eventually, the two steady themselves, ready to talk about everything that's happened. She begins explaining. That day, he had left for a mission and never returned. In her memory, the 3 hungry sisters huddled together, their eyes fixed on the moon, silently wishing for their brother to return soon. One wondered why their brother was taking so long. The youngest even asked if maybe he had abandoned them. He'd never been gone this long before. Determined to find him, she decided to go search. She made her way to the mission headquarters, only to learn he had vanished. There, she saw another hunter's wife furiously confronting a certain man, calling him a traitor, demanding to know where her husband was. The man, impatient and cold, snapped at her, calling her crazy before shoving her aside. Then another hunter stepped forward, accusing the man of going into the portal with young Master Liu and the others. It was in that moment she realized, this man was involved. The so-called traitor just stood there with a bored expression, calmly smoking his cigarette. Then, without warning, he summoned his firepower. A blazing fireball shot straight toward the accuser, who froze in terror. The flame struck him directly, engulfing his body in searing heat. He collapsed to the ground, defeated, while everyone else just stood by, doing nothing. The traitor warned them not to spread rumors about the young master, claiming the mission was high risk. Back in the present, her brother mutters that the man got exactly what he deserved for betraying them, then presses her for news about the other girls. At that, her expression shifts instantly. Worry fills her eyes. And then, the tears come again, harder this time. Her brother stares in shock, completely thrown by her sudden breakdown. Through sobs, she says she only wanted revenge for what happened to him. But that's when it happened. Out of nowhere, a flood of demons poured through. A portal ripped open, and chaos erupted. People ran in every direction, desperately trying to escape as the invasion began. The memory of that demonic tide still haunts her to the core. She races through the shattered streets, voice trembling as she calls out the names of her other 2 sisters. Not far away, a pair of hunters walk past, casually commenting on how fierce this monster wave had been. She's left standing there, alone, watching the flames consume what's left of the city. Everything around her is nothing but ruins. With tears streaming down her cheeks, she runs blindly through the chaos, weaving between broken walls and piles of debris. Her hands are cut and bleeding as she digs through the rubble, desperately hoping to find her sisters. But with each step, her hope fades, until she collapses to the ground, screaming their names in raw despair. Then, her mind shifts, she remembers her brother. The thought shatters what little strength she had left, and she breaks down completely, sobbing, wondering where he could possibly be. Back in the present, the main character pulls his sister close, telling her not to cry, because this time, fate has given them another chance. His eyes glow with a dangerous red light as he swears that a man named Chen will be the very first to pay the price. Somewhere deep inside a damp, foul-smelling prison, a narrow hallway is smeared with old stains. Inside one of the cells, the traitor paces frantically, shouting that he's innocent, claiming he was only there to deliver a gift. His words cut off when he slammed against the bars, eyes going wide in horror. A demon stands right behind him, its shadow stretching across the filthy floor. The man drops to his knees, begging for his life as the creature leans in, its grotesque tongue sliding out. His pleas turn into a blood-curdling scream, and when silence returns, the hallway has gained a few fresh red stains. With the traitor gone, the main character declares that it's time to tear the Liu family apart from the inside out. His sister, wiping away the last of her tears, nods and says she'll follow his lead no matter what. Then, as if suddenly remembering something important, she lifts him right off the ground. She cheerfully announces that it's bath time. He shouts in protest, yelling that he's her brother, not some kid to be carried around. But she only grins, explaining that she's now his personal maid, and this is part of her daily duties. Without giving him a choice, she marches toward the bathroom with him in her arms, while he kicks and screams like his life depends on it. The scene shifts to the bathroom, where the boy stands on a small tub, confused about what's happening, while the girl calmly prepares everything as if it were completely normal. She steps closer and says it's time for him to take off his clothes. He quickly insists he can manage on his own, but she ignores him. With a playful grin, she whisks his clothes away in one swift motion. Glancing down, she teases him about how cute his little elephant looks. After hearing this, tears welled up in his eyes from sheer embarrassment, and he felt like dropping dead on the spot. Completely mortified, he shouts at her to stop looking, reminding her that this is absolutely not okay. But she simply declares that now that she's grown bigger, it's her turn to give him a bath. The MC stares in shock, demanding to know what she's doing as she begins removing her own clothes. He quickly covers his eyes, unable to handle the awkwardness. Wrapped in a towel, she steps into the tub with him, leaving him frozen in disbelief. As she washes him, she starts talking about the suffering people endure while the wealthy waste resources without a care. Hearing this, the MC's expression hardens. He says justice is something you have to take into your own hands. His voice carries a firm resolve to change the unfair reality around them. Moments later, she offers to scrub his tiny elephant as well, sending him into a mild panic. He refuses instantly, but she goes ahead anyway, saying that as his personal maid, it's her duty to wash him properly. They keep bickering until the bath finally comes to an end. Now lying on the floor like a corpse, the boy stares into the void while his sister calmly folds and puts away his clothes, as if nothing happened. Inside, he feels utterly humiliated. Being the older brother yet treated like a helpless child is unbearable. She notices something is wrong and asks him directly, but he turns his head away, ignoring her. Hurt by his coldness, she says he's never acted this mean to her before. To avoid dragging the moment out, he stands up and says he's not angry anymore, adding that he has something important to ask. She brightens immediately, telling him to ask whatever he wants. He asks if she has awakened a wind element ability. She nods, confirming it. His eyes widen. The youngest recorded awakening was at 12 years old, yet here she is, far younger and with no training at all. He asks how she managed it, but she admits she isn't sure. She explains that a strange panel appeared, showing her stats and guiding her to awaken her power. Hearing the word panel from her shocks him. He immediately recalls his own system, the one that displays his thunder abilities, and wonders if hers is the same. The thought races through his mind, how did she get a panel and awaken so young? She notices him spacing out and asks if something's wrong, but he brushes it off. Instead, he tells her that since she's awakened, she must train hard to grow stronger. With determination in her eyes, she promises she'll train as much as she can. He smiles faintly, patting her head, saying that out of all his sisters, she's always been the most responsible. Suddenly, a knock echoes from their bedroom door, and the two freeze. A maid entered the room and informed them that dinner was ready, adding that the master had instructed their mother to prepare some milk for him. She handed a filled baby bottle to the MC sister, who looked at it in surprise. Taking the bottle into her hands, she glanced at her brother, who was already approaching with a new scheme brewing in his mind. He told her they needed to use every advantage the Liu family possessed to grow stronger as quickly as possible. The girl frowned, saying she was already pushing herself to the limit in training. With a sly grin, he told her to open her mouth and promised she'd find out the secret to gaining more power. Although hesitant, curiosity got the better of her, and she did as he asked. Without warning, he placed the bottle between her lips and told her to drink. She obeyed, sipping the milk under his watchful gaze. Almost instantly, a faint purple aura began swirling around her, causing her eyes to widen in shock. She asked why such incredible energy was flowing through her so effortlessly. The MC explained that their mother's special constitution could transform crystals into a pure energy-like substance, something even elite squads struggled to obtain during missions. Yet, their mother could produce this essence endlessly, making her a living fountain of strength. The revelation left his sister speechless. She remarked that nothing like this was ever mentioned at the academy. The MC's expression hardened as he speculated that noble families were hiding countless secrets while manipulating others to fight their battles. Determined, he declared that they would uncover every hidden truth. His sister then offered the bottle to him, suggesting he drink as well. But he shook his head, telling her to finish it herself and push her limits first. With that, he turned and walked away, muttering that he was going to eat too, leaving her to keep drinking. When he entered his mother's room, the maids exchanged puzzled looks, wondering why he had returned so soon. The scene shifted to him feeding directly from his mother while she lounged in the household pool. The woman complained that she had already given him so much milk, yet he still kept drinking without pause. One maid quickly ordered the others to prepare more medicinal meals for the madam. Inwardly, the MC vowed that their path of revenge was starting now. He and his sister would overturn the very order of the heavens itself. Thunder roared above the mansion as he swore to flip the Liu family's world upside down. Back in his bedroom, he crawled across the floor with unwavering focus, searching for something important. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to a memory of the traitor in utter panic. He was shouting in desperation, claiming the gift had been in his hand just moments ago, while frantically searching around. At that moment, the MC crouched down, peeking under a piece of furniture. There, he spotted a small box that the traitor must have dropped. A sly smile formed on his face as he picked it up, certain that anything this well guarded had to be valuable to the family. He flipped the lid open and a brilliant blue glow spilled across his young face. Inside rested a large azure crystal. He muttered to himself, wondering if it was a magic beast crystal. But before he could think further, a system panel appeared before his eyes, identifying it as a rare thunder element skill crystal. This left him stunned. He never knew skills could be absorbed directly instead of painstakingly cultivated. The system calmly explained that after defeating evolved beasts, there's a chance of obtaining treasures like this. The boy's surprise quickly turned into suspicion as he demanded to know how the voice seemed to read his thoughts. His heart skipped a beat when the answer came. The voice claimed it existed inside his very consciousness. The MC scoffed, saying he'd read countless novels with this exact cliché. Back in his previous life, he had been a student obsessed with games and web novels, stories where protagonists with systems would overturn their fates and get revenge on their enemies. Anger flared in him as he shouted that the system was useless. The voice snapped back, reminding him that without it, he wouldn't even be here, reincarnated in this world. That made him hesitate. He didn't like admitting it, but the voice had a point. Crossing his arms, he demanded to know whether it had any connection to his little sister's system. The voice denied it outright, urging him instead to focus on growing stronger quickly. Accepting that advice, the boy set his mind to the task. Sitting cross-legged on the floor, he gripped the crystal tightly and began absorbing its energy with fierce determination. Soon, an overwhelming divine energy surged through his small body. Moments later, he stretched out his palm, and a gleaming lightning spear materialized in his grasp. He could hardly believe it. This was a skill that would normally take 10 long years to master, now his in an instant. Feeling the dense power thrumming within the weapon, he grew curious about its true might. Without hesitation, he hurled the spear with full strength, eager to see the destruction it could cause. The loud blast draws the grandfather's attention. He rushes over with the butler to see what happened. But instead of chaos, they're met with a strange sight, the boy's father standing there in his SpongeBob underwear, arguing with the MC's mother about the noise. The scene leaves both the grandfather and the MC's little sister completely stunned. They glance at the massive hole in the mansion wall near the boy, the result of his newly awakened skill. The grandfather's face darkens in anger as he demands to know who caused the damage. The butler explains that he heard the crack of lightning coming from this room, which could only mean one thing. The moment the grandfather lays eyes on his grandson, his anger vanishes. With pride, he lifts the boy into the air, celebrating the arrival of a divine skill within the family. Turning to the boy's mother, the grandfather praises her for contributing greatly to the family's future, while the mother silently thinks about escaping her son's never-ending hunger. Meanwhile, the boy's father looks irritated, still grumbling about being woken from his sleep. That earns him a sharp scolding from the grandfather, who insists he should be proud to have such an exceptionally talented son. Without hesitation, the grandfather announces that he will take his grandson to the family's annual hunting festival. He asks the butler if everything is ready for the event, then laughs, saying the younger generation must learn their true value early in life. As always, the boy leaps onto his mother's chest for milk, while he and his sister remain clueless about what is being plotted. The grandfather, meanwhile, walks down a long hallway. And the grandfather channels his energy and opens a massive circular gate before them. The metal rings hum as a swirling vortex of bright purple energy blooms into existence. Standing at the threshold of the dimensional portal, the family head prepares to lead them inside. The MC stares in disbelief. The Liu family can create portals on their own. Anger stirs in him at the thought of how many secrets the powerful keep hidden while the weak struggle just to survive. Stepping through the portal, they emerge in a dense and silent forest. The grandfather continues to boast about his grandson, while the MC's mother mutters about how he never stops eating. Suddenly, the MC's father shouts a warning and points to the sky. A trail of smoke streaks toward them at incredible speed. Whatever it is slices through the trees in a blur. Moments later, a massive multi-headed serpent bursts into view, violently tearing into a group of hunters. One hunter strikes, but his weapon shatters instantly. Another raises a force field in desperate defense. When the MC spots 2 C-rank pythons and a B-rank python king in what should have been a simple C-rank dungeon, both he and his sister freeze in shock. Their eyes widen even more as they recognize one of the hunters battling the pythons. It's his sister, the one with striking red hair. Before they can react, one of the serpents lunges toward her with terrifying speed. To everyone's shock, our boy sister somehow holds the serpent's massive jaws apart with nothing but her bare hands. Her muscles tremble under the pressure, and sweat beads down her face as she struggles to keep those dagger-like fangs from snapping shut on her. But the beast's sheer strength is overwhelming, yet somehow, the boy's sister manages to tear off the head of one of the snake's head with her bare hands. The hunter's leader wastes no time, shouting for everyone to get out of the deadly zone. Shield in hand, he steps forward to block the massive snake monster's advance. But before he can react, a fellow hunter suddenly lunges at him from behind. The girl sees it and screams at the top of her lungs, warning him to watch out. Her voice cuts through the chaos, but it's too late. The attacker's fist smashes straight through the shield, slamming into the captain with bone-crushing force. The blow knocks the shield clean from his grasp just as the serpent rears back to strike. Then, out of nowhere, a surge of purple lightning tears through the air, crashing into the beast. The source is another hunter, his gaze locked on the monster. Fury erupts among the group as one man yells at the attacker for striking their captain. But the traitor only grins, a wicked glint in his eyes, and turns toward the one who spoke. With a swift, brutal motion, he delivers a devastating punch, leaving his opponent severely wounded. A nearby hunter freezes in shock, his voice trembling as he names the attacker, Kyung, a convicted criminal from the past. Kyung just bursts into a wild, unhinged laugh at the fear in their eyes. He follows it with a vicious kick, sending the injured man hurtling straight toward the gaping jaws of the giant serpent, which swallows him whole. Watching all of this with an icy stare, our young protagonist can't help but recall the past. He remembers Kuei Shan tossing a friend to his death without a shred of hesitation. The sight of blood in the air mirrors that haunting memory. One by one, his friends had been picked off back then. The monster they were feeding with their own comrades had risen, colossal and terrifying. And standing there with a twisted smile, his father had ordered them to keep feeding it so that a treasure could be formed. Without pause, he had commanded Kyung to attack his younger self. The henchman charged forward, ready to finish him. But in that moment, the boy from the past had awakened his power, his fist blazing with energy as he met Kyung head-on. Their fists collided, the shockwave rippling through the battlefield. It was in that clash he realized, Kyung was a demon in human form, someone who took pleasure in crushing others. Backed by the Liu family, he had become one of their most dangerous lackeys. Back in the present, the red-haired girl's life hangs in the balance. The sister turns to our protagonist, desperate, asking how they can possibly save her. A plan was already brewing in the protagonist's mind. Turning around, he began feeding again, which immediately irritated his mother. Confused and frustrated, she asked what on earth he was doing. With his mouth full of milk, the protagonist suddenly pulled a strange expression, then spat everything right onto his mother's body, leaving her utterly shocked. Disgusted and furious, she screamed at him for making such a mess and tossed him into the air without a second thought. The commotion quickly drew the attention of the boy's grandfather, whose face darkened with rage at the sight. But before the child could hit the ground, his older sister leapt forward. She caught him midair and landed gracefully, holding her little brother carefully in her arms. Checking if he was all right, she asked about his condition, but the boy simply explained that his master plan had only just begun, it was all to save his other sister. Before anyone could respond, our boy father suddenly slapped his wife hard across the face, leaving her stunned. With a mocking tone, he scolded her for being so careless with their son. Enraged, the woman shouted that not even her own parents had ever dared to slap her, and her fury boiled over. Summoning an icy weapon, she charged at her husband with murderous intent. The man defended himself with his own powers, declaring that she needed to be taught a lesson for her arrogance. The children watched in silence as their parents clashed, their abilities colliding violently. But before either side could prevail, a surge of energy burst between them. The grandfather appeared, forcing both combatants to freeze. He glared at them with authority and reminded the mother that her duty was to protect her son, not endanger him. With equal sternness, he told them both they carried the weight of their family's honor. His words forced the couple to calm down. They dismissed their weapons, while the children observed anxiously from a distance. The protagonist's sister turned to him and asked what they should do next. He reassured her not to worry, because they were coming. At that moment, the family's young maid caught a strange sound nearby. The butler quickly informed the grandfather that he had sensed movement from the woods. Everyone stiffened as an eerie presence approached. Emerging from the forest, 3 goblins revealed themselves, their twisted faces filled with strange expressions. From a higher vantage point, the creatures were seen closing in on the family, shrieking wildly as if preparing for battle. But before they could strike, the monsters were ruthlessly skewered by wooden stakes that pierced straight through their bodies. The protagonist's father was stunned, questioning how such creatures could be here when the area was supposed to have already been cleared. The grandfather scolded bitterly, "This is what happens when all you do is cause trouble in taverns instead of studying properly." Just then, the boy's mother began to glow with a deep purple energy. The protagonist explained that their mother's milk essence was attracting demonic beasts, especially stronger ones. As if to confirm his words, the sound of countless goblin footsteps echoed closer, tightening the family's nerves. Soon, a swarm of elite goblins appeared, led by one at peak B rank. Without hesitation, one of the creatures leapt forward, swinging its axe with murderous intent. But the grandfather remained calm, ordering his subordinates to deal with the intruders. Instantly, the family unleashed their elemental powers, clashing against the horde of monsters in a fierce battle. Amid the chaos, the protagonist whispered to his sister that it was their chance to escape. Clutching him tightly, she sprinted toward a nearby cliff. Without hesitation, she leapt off the edge, plummeting rapidly with her brother in her arms. In that moment, her eyes glowed brilliantly as she activated her special ability. Harnessing the power of wind, she began soaring through the skies, carrying her brother away from danger. Amazed, the protagonist asked when she had learned to fly. With a smile, she revealed it was a reward granted by the system. Shocked, he pressed her for details. She cheerfully admitted the task was nothing more than giving her little brother a bath. A brief flashback showed her completing the mission and receiving the rare flight technique as a reward. The protagonist could only fume in disbelief. How could such a trivial task earn such an incredible ability? Meanwhile, on the battlefield, their fiery red-haired sister fought fiercely against a massive serpent, slicing at it with her sword. But another serpent, even larger, suddenly emerged and struck the hunters, shattering their defenses in an instant. With one devastating blow, it hurled a hunter through the air, breaking her guard completely. On the ground, the woman cried out desperately to her captain, declaring they couldn't keep fighting like this. The captain confronted Kuei-shang, demanding to know why he was attacking his own allies. While licking the blood from his hand, the traitor smiled darkly and admitted he only lived for the screams of his victims. When asked who his master was, and reminded that betraying the guild violated the laws, he sneered. To him, laws were nothing but chains for the weak and meaningless rules for commoners. Without warning, he rushed at incredible speed. Instead of striking the captain, he blindsided one of the female hunters, overwhelming her completely. Pleading for her captain to save her, she begged in terror. But the traitor showed no mercy. He hurled her straight into the gaping jaws of the giant serpent. Before everyone's horrified eyes, the beast devoured her whole. The captain, stricken with despair, shouted that the mission had failed and ordered everyone to retreat. Frozen by fear, the red-haired girl trembled, unable to look away from the gruesome sight. Consumed by fury, the captain charged recklessly, vowing to end the traitor's life. He unleashed a fierce strike, but Kuei-shang evaded effortlessly and countered with deadly precision, landing a direct blow. Seeing her leader fall, the young woman called him a monster and tried to stall him by throwing an object. But the rock did nothing, it only tore a piece of his shirt. Mocking them, the villain declared it was their misfortune to encounter him here, for none of them would survive. He lunged at the girl with razor-sharp claws. Surrounded by shards of her broken sword, she braced for death. At the last second, her captain threw himself in front of her, taking the fatal strike in her place. He collapsed lifelessly, and Kuei-shang discarded his body, letting the serpent devour it without hesitation. The girl screamed in despair, helpless as the monstrous serpent consumed her leader. Purple lightning crackled across the beast's body while the traitor fixed his gaze on her. With chilling words, he told her it was a pity, he had wanted to add her to his collection, to turn her into a specimen and display her like a trophy. Blood-stained hand reaching forward, he pressed his palm against her face as tears streamed down her cheeks. In her final moments of desperation, she cried out for her brother, wondering where they were. And then, a massive sword of lightning materialized. A powerful voice declared that they had arrived to save her. The traitor spun and managed to block the strike with his arm. A shockwave of golden energy blasted against his back, but he merely swatted it aside with a snarl. The girl's eyes widened in shock, and with trembling lips, she called out her sister's name. Just then, the protagonist and his sister landed firmly on the ground, prepared for battle. The girl immediately recognized his former appearance and called out to him as her brother. He assured her that explanations would come later, for now, they had far more urgent matters to deal with. Meanwhile, the red-haired girl stood frozen, staring at him with a bewildered expression, silently asking herself what on earth was happening. Turning his gaze toward the serpent, the protagonist quickly realized that the beast had undergone an evolution by devouring awakeners, a phenomenon unheard of until now. At the same time, the traitorous villain began to tremble violently as golden energy swirled furiously around him. With a surge of power, he shattered the restraints that had been holding him back, breaking free in an instant. His eyes narrowed, and he sneered mockingly, asking if it wasn't the young master standing before him with nothing more than his little servant girl. And so, the three siblings found themselves standing side by side, ready to face their opponent head-on. Confused, the red-haired girl demanded to know how they even knew about her, and why they had brought the younger girl with them. But the villain brushed off her question entirely, his mind already calculating how best to exploit the situation. The protagonist, watching carefully, realized that this was no mindless brute, his enemy was cunning. With a sinister grin, the man revealed his intentions, to turn the servant girl into an empty puppet and deliver the protagonist directly to his master. The battlefield bore silent witness to his cruelty. Several hunters lay defeated, their bodies pierced by glowing red weapons hovering in the air. It became clear, the villain wielded a rare metal-type power, allowing him to forge weapons from his own energy and merge them seamlessly with his body. The protagonist's sharp eyes studied their aura levels, and he immediately understood the truth: the gap between their strength and the enemy's was vast, almost insurmountable. But then, a spark of determination lit up in his mind. His eyes gleamed as he turned to his sisters, instructing them to listen carefully and follow his lead. On the other side, the villain exuded a chilling energy, preparing to strike. Without warning, he lunged forward with terrifying speed, claws slashing straight toward the protagonist. His sisters leapt back instinctively, giving him space. In that moment, the protagonist activated his divine awakening. Lightning roared to life around him as brilliant yellow energy exploded outward, his body radiating overwhelming power. The protagonist unleashed his lightning power, moving at blinding speed to evade the villain's strikes. The enemy froze for a moment, his eyes widening. He recognized the technique. It was a forbidden move, one he had seen before. Memory surged back to him, recalling a past battle where he fought and defeated someone who wielded that very same ability. In that instant, realization struck: this child before him was connected to his past opponent. Bursting into laughter, he marveled at the unbelievable coincidence. But the protagonist's small, child-sized body could not endure the immense strain of such divine power. His movements faltered, and he knew he had only one chance left. Summoning all his strength, he shouted his sisters' names to signal the real plan. Hearing the noise, the villain turned his head toward the sound. At that moment, the red-haired sister appeared, hefting a massive boulder over her head. Without hesitation, she hurled it at him with all her might. The giant rock crashed down, but the enemy easily dodged, letting it smash into the ground and shatter violently. Then, a strange noise drew his attention. A streak of green energy raced swiftly across the ground. Alarmed, the villain shifted to full alert as the energy surged closer. Suddenly, a furious storm of dust and wind erupted before him. The whirlwind grew into a raging tornado, created by the white-haired sister with her wind ability. Even while caught in the storm, the adversary sneered. "These are nothing but cheap tricks," he mocked. That brief distraction was all the protagonist needed. Focusing every ounce of his divine lightning, he forged a spear crackling with unstoppable energy. Pouring his strength into a martial arts technique, he hurled the weapon forward with everything he had. The villain spun around in shock, cursing the boy's cunning as the spear struck him square in the head. The lightning pierced clean through. The sheer force triggered a massive explosion, leaving a trail of devastation across the forest. But the price was heavy. The protagonist collapsed to the ground, his body unable to handle the recoil. His sister immediately scolded him, furious at his recklessness, while both girls hovered anxiously over him, terrified for his condition. Yet, even while injured, the villain grinned darkly. He muttered that it didn't matter, he would still protect the young master by finishing off the two little girls. With a sadistic smile, he drew a razor-sharp blade and charged forward at terrifying speed. The servant girl cried out a warning and leapt in front of the red-haired sister, shielding her from the incoming strike. The villain's blow landed with crushing force, slamming her body against a tree. Turning his eyes back to the redhead, the man smirked. "Don't worry, your turn is next." His arms twisted and morphed into gleaming blades. He launched them toward the girl, pinning her down with deadly precision. Leaning closer, he taunted her. She would make perfect bait for his plans. But before the killing strike could land, a bolt of yellow lightning crackled into existence, deflecting the attack at the very last second. Snarling, the villain shifted his aim back toward the fallen protagonist. Raising a small dagger, he lunged downward. The weapon pierced deep into the boy's back, sending him sprawling helplessly across the ground. The red-haired sister watched in horror, her heart shattering as her brother was struck down before her eyes. The red-haired girl finally broke free of the villain's grip, scooped up her injured brother. The enemy clenched his fist, sneering and asking why the boy was in such a rush to meet his end. But the protagonist, weak and bleeding, managed to retort that it was actually the villain who was about to be taken down. Blood dripping from his eye, the adversary roared with fury at the child's insolence. Suddenly, a commanding voice thundered from above, calling him an ungrateful mutt for daring to attack his master. It was the protagonist's grandfather, descending from the sky, eyes blazing with rage. At once, the villain realized the truth, that the earlier lightning spear had not only been an attack but also a clever signal to summon the family. Smirking, the protagonist confirmed it had all been part of his plan. A flashback revealed what had happened moments earlier. When the family arrived at the scene and noticed the children were missing, the butler reported that the young master and the servant girl had vanished. The father grumbled that his son could already walk. Our boy grandfather barked orders at his men to track them down immediately. Just then, they spotted the brilliant trail of light from the protagonist's earlier attack. Without hesitation, the grandfather ignited his lightning power and shot forward at full speed, racing straight toward the signal. Now, arriving at the battlefield, the grandfather instantly sized up the situation. The villain's confidence cracked, panic flashing across his face. His only chance was to seize the protagonist as a hostage. With desperate speed, he lunged at the siblings. But before he could reach them, the red-haired sister stepped up, summoning a staff to protect her brother. With a forceful strike, she blasted the villain back, catching him completely off guard. Stunned, the man glared at her with seething rage. Then, out of nowhere, the protagonist's father appeared, his fury directed at the traitor. He spat that the villain was useless, a complete failure. Without hesitation, he launched a devastating attack. The villain scrambled to flee, shouting that none of this was his fault. But before he could escape, one of the forest's massive beasts cornered him. With no room to run, the creature tore into him mercilessly, leaving him no chance to survive. Yet the battle was far from over. The colossal serpent began to mutate, transforming into a radiant golden monstrosity. The butler rushed to the children's side, checking on the protagonist and assuring the others that he was still alive despite his injuries. The grandfather praised the girls for their courage and declared that the serpent had ripened into the perfect moment for them to claim its rare treasure. But in that instant, the realization struck him: these noble families had been deliberately using innocent civilians as fodder, sacrificing them to evolve these terrifying beasts. Resolute, the grandfather and his son prepared themselves to confront the golden serpent. Their clash ignited a cataclysmic explosion of crimson energy, ripping through the forest in a deafening blast. Out of the smoke, two shadowed figures emerged, while the children huddled at a safe distance, watching with wide, fearful eyes. Right after that, the grandfather and the father stepped forward, with the treasure from mighty golden beast that had just defeated. The old man smirks, remarking that today's harvest had turned out far richer than he ever imagined. Without wasting time, he orders the butler to escort the two girls and gather the leftover materials for the warehouse. In his mind, the scheming elder is already plotting, mixing worthless scraps with decent items to sell cheaply to average hunters, while keeping the high-grade treasures aside to bleed the elite squads dry with outrageous prices. He then passes the venom sac to his son, telling him to use it as a bargaining chip to forge powerful new connections. The father accepts with a sly grin etched across his face. Next, the grandfather hands over the silver serpent's horn, instructing that it be sent to the auction house, while declaring that the scales will be crafted into protective treasures for his beloved grandson. Hearing all this, the young protagonist can only stare in confusion, unable to grasp the twisted way his family handles things. The butler bows deeply, pledging to carry out his master's commands without fail. But then, the boy's father steps in, asking his father to hand him the Snake King's essence. The old man scowls in annoyance, muttering that his son already has a fine wife capable of providing him with limitless powerful essence. At that very moment, the protagonist's mother approaches, thinking, "Am I nothing more than a tool to them?" From behind, the protagonist and his sisters quietly observe the tense scene unfold. The father's eyes widen in shock before his gaze lowers, lingering on his wife's essence. His expression twists with anger, his thoughts darkening: "She'll never hand it over to me easily." Then his eyes shift toward his son. To be met with the protagonist's sharp glare, as if declaring without words, "I will never share my milk with anyone." Then, without hesitation, the grandfather tosses the snake essence toward the butler. Catching it effortlessly, the butler is awestruck by the overwhelming power radiating from the sphere. The family head calmly states that his butler's eldest son is currently evolving, and this essence will prove useful for him. Dropping to one knee, the loyal servant thanks his master with reverence, vowing eternal devotion to the clan. Days later, the scene shifts to the grand Luklon mansion beneath a star-strewn sky. Inside, the young protagonist sits in his room, holding a mysterious pendant. One of his sisters enters and informs him that Shuang has now been assigned as his maid as well. Almost on cue, the two girls appear before him in crisp-made uniforms, smiling warmly at their brother. Looking back down at the pendant, a system prompt flashes before his eyes, confirming he has received a rank A defensive treasure. Noticing his expression, one of the girls asks with worry if something is wrong. But before she can press further, the boy's eyes spark with lightning. Channeling his ability, he unleashes a surge of yellow energy straight into the pendant. A brilliant blast erupts from his room, shooting out through the window into the night sky. Both sisters gape in disbelief, stunned by the sheer force their brother just displayed. And yet, when the glow fades, the pendant remains pristine, without a single scratch. The boy clenches it in his hand, deep in thought. This small test proves what he suspected all along, that beasts can evolve by devouring awakened humans. It also confirms the ugly truth: the noble families deliberately use ordinary people as bait, exploiting them to harvest rare resources and exclusive gear, while pretending to be their protectors. The very lessons taught at the academy are nothing but lies. Furious at this hypocrisy, the protagonist tightens his fists, eyes burning with determination. The two sisters glance at their younger brother and ask if information is really that important. Turning serious, the protagonist explains that he has only now begun to realize just how dangerous ignorance can be. Gently cupping his sister's face, he tells them that from this point onward, they must rely on the Liu family's influence to gather intelligence. With resolute expressions, both girls nod and agree to follow his lead. Moments later, he shifts the conversation and asks Shuang why she had been traveling with that so-called divine team. She hesitates, unable to answer right away. The other sister presses further, voicing her own question: why is Shuang's power so unusually strong? The red-haired girl falls silent, unable to respond, while the younger one just stares at her with unblinking intensity. The protagonist then mentions another name, Sanson. At the sound of it, Shuang freezes, her entire body tense. Tears well up in her eyes, and she struggles to explain what happened to their missing sister. Overcome by grief, she collapses onto the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Before her cries can draw attention, the boy quickly covers her mouth and warns her to keep quiet. Once she calms down a little, she sits on the edge of the bed, still trembling, and begins to recount the painful memory. She explains that on the day their sister disappeared, she had gone out searching for their brother and never returned. The scene shifts into a flashback. Little Shuang sits alone, staring longingly at a piece of cake, her hand reaching toward the cherry on top. Her sad eyes reflect how much she misses her siblings, waiting for them to come home. Finally, she decides to go look for them herself. She wanders through the dark, empty house, softly calling out Sanson's name. Fear creeps in as she races down a shadowy hallway, begging her younger sister to stop hiding and come out. Back in the present, the protagonist is stunned to hear that Sanson had actually run away from home. Shuang continues, explaining that from the rooftop she witnessed something terrifying. The beast tide wasn't a natural disaster at all, but the work of a malicious person. Her memory shows her frantically darting across rooftops, desperately calling out Sanson's name. At one point, she pounds on a locked door, pleading for her little sister to escape quickly. But then, her face twists into pure terror as she glances to the side, realizing she isn't alone. Up on the rooftop, Shuang caught sight of a strange figure standing beneath the full moon. The man's face was shrouded in darkness, but his piercing red eyes glowed ominously. Raising a staff that radiated with power, he struck it hard against the ground. In an instant, a massive wave of energy rippled outward. A gigantic crimson magic circle appeared beneath him, its eerie glow lighting up the night. From its core, a brilliant beam of red light shot skyward, tearing a rift open in the heavens. What emerged was terrifying, a colossal reptilian eye staring down through the portal. Shuang froze in terror as the swirling red gateway expanded, and from its depths poured out wave after wave of demonic beasts. Her memory shows her standing helplessly as monstrous creatures swarmed the city, destroying everything in sight. Among them was a savage demon wolf that began hunting her down. Just when escape seemed impossible, a glowing panel appeared before her eyes. The system had chosen her. It declared that she had awakened a divine body cultivation ability. Following its guidance, she made a desperate leap, soaring across rooftops in a way she had never done before. That leap saved her life. Back in the present, Shuang explains how she ran endlessly until finally encountering the subjugation team that took her in. Hearing her story, the protagonist is left speechless. Another system, another miraculous awakening. He then suggests that if each of them has received a system, then maybe Sanson does too, and if that's true, she could still be alive somewhere. The boy nods, declaring that they'll use the Lu family's influence to search for any trace of their missing sister. Just then, Shuang hesitantly admits she was given a new task by her system, and it came with a reward. Without warning, she sweeps up her brother into her arms. The protagonist's eyes widen in panic, instantly reminded of what happened the last time. His sisters, however, are delighted. Laughing as they rush off, they explain the system's new mission: give their younger brother a bath. After that, the two sisters drag the protagonist into the washing area for a bath. The red-haired sister lifted him high into the air, teasing that this was what a little elephant looked like, while the poor boy screamed in embarrassment. Off to the side, the white-haired sister couldn't stop laughing at the scene. But then, the redhead suddenly came up with a mischievous idea to stop her brother from protesting any further. With a wicked grin, she flicked his elephant. A sharp jolt of pain shot through the protagonist's body, leaving him speechless and humiliated. Moments later, he sat in the bathtub, sulking and crying on the inside while the sisters carefully washed him, smiling all the while. Soon, they joined him in the tub, splashing around and playing with the water as he slowly relaxed. After the bath, the sisters hugged him tightly, praising what a good little boy he had been. But the protagonist snapped back, grumbling that they had changed. All of a sudden, the red-haired sister froze in place, her cheerful expression vanishing and being replaced by one of pure dread. The protagonist immediately noticed her reaction and asked anxiously what was wrong. With a trembling finger, she pointed ahead, her voice shaking as she revealed that the beast tide had been caused by that man. The revelation left both the protagonist and his other sister stunned. Meanwhile, in another part of the mansion, the butler was walking alongside a stern man with a scar across his face. The camera zooms in to show his cold, intimidating gaze. In a flashback, the red-haired girl remembered seeing the same man on a rooftop the night the beast tide began. In her memory, he raised his staff, conjured a massive glowing magic circle, and tore the sky open. From that rift emerged a giant reptilian eye that filled her with terror. Snapping back to the present, the protagonist boldly declared that he was the son of the future family head, telling his sisters not to panic. With that, the three of them continued down the hallway. As the two men walked past them, the protagonist glared with sharp suspicion. His red-haired sister, however, trembled with fear, unable to hide her reaction. The scarred man noticed her unease but said nothing. Forcing nervous smiles, the sisters greeted the butler politely. The butler then bowed respectfully to the protagonist, addressing him as young Master Wang. The boy's expression hardened as he silently watched the two men walk further down the corridor. Soon, they reached a heavy wooden door. The butler announced that Zhou King had returned to meet with the master of the house. Realizing it was the meeting chamber, the protagonist decided to eavesdrop. His sister worried aloud that they might get caught, but he reassured her with calm confidence, hinting that he already had a plan. With quiet determination, the siblings crept closer to the door, ready to listen in. The protagonist suddenly pushes the door open, barging into the meeting room with his sisters right behind him. His sister shouts that he's not allowed to enter, but it's already too late. Inside, his grandfather sits calmly at his desk, with the butler and the scar-faced man standing before him. All three turn their heads in surprise at the unexpected intrusion. The sisters immediately bow and apologize, explaining nervously that they tried to stop the young master but couldn't hold him back. The boy, however, pays no attention to their words. Instead, he runs straight toward the desk with his arms wide open, calling out for his grandfather. Smiling warmly, the head of the Liu family waves his hand, dismissing the girls from the room, and invites his grandson over. Pulling the boy onto his lap, he begins speaking proudly about the strength and influence of their family. His expression then turns serious as he asks about the recent beast tides. The butler and the scarred man stand at attention, listening carefully. The scarred man reports that new clusters of beasts have already been located and could strike at any moment. Hearing this, the protagonist's face twists with anger. In that instant, he realizes the academy has been deceiving everyone, lying about the tides being natural disasters while sending students straight into life-threatening danger. A flashback plays in his mind of a teacher claiming the beast tides are natural occurrences, insisting that the awakened exist to protect the weak. Snapping back to the meeting, the butler announces that he has already arranged for the guild to post high-paying missions. The promise of rich rewards will draw countless teams straight into the trap. The grandfather praises him, reminding everyone that the butler's family has loyally served the Liu family for 3 generations. With a satisfied nod, he adds that he is very pleased with his service. At that moment, the butler signals discreetly to the scar-faced man, who instantly understands. Dropping to one knee, the man pledges his loyalty, declaring it an honor to work for the Liu family. The butler then expresses gratitude for the master's generosity, thanking him for the gift that allowed his son to reach peak B rank. The family head smiles, ordering both men to move forward with the beast tide plan exactly as arranged. The scarred man remains kneeling, accepting the command without hesitation. But the grandfather doesn't stop there. He also orders preparations for expensive equipment and lavish entertainment to be made ready for the survivors. A quick flashback shows a younger version of the family head lounging in a hot spring, surrounded by women, while a maid secretly watches from the shadows. Bowing deeply, the butler accepts every command without question. As night falls, the Grand Liu family mansion glows beneath the moonlight. Back in their private room, the protagonist explains the family's cruel scheme to his sisters. He reveals how the Liu family manipulates the beast tides, opening portals, using ordinary people as bait, and sending awakened ones to fight. In doing so, they collect mountains of valuable resources for themselves. His sister, horrified, demands to know how they can be so heartless, asking if those people aren't considered human. With a grim look, the protagonist replies that in the eyes of the nobles, they themselves are the only true humans. Everyone else? Nothing more than livestock. The red-haired sister suggests exposing the Liu family scheme to everyone, but the protagonist quickly shuts that idea down. He explains that even if they told the truth, nobody would believe them. That answer leaves both girls uneasy, and they turn to their younger brother, asking what they should do instead. With a determined look, the boy declares that they're going to crush the Liu family's lackeys and put an end to the beast tide themselves. He motions for his sisters to come closer, and the two lean in as he begins to whisper. The protagonist carefully lays out his plan while they listen with full attention. After explaining everything, he asks if they understood. The girls nod, but their expressions are still tense as they question whether they can really overcome such powerful enemies. Confidently, the protagonist reminds them that they still have 3 weeks to prepare. The plan will begin at the end of the month. Raising his baby bottle, he insists they'll need to grow stronger before then. His sister stares at him, confused about what he means, but in that moment, he and the white-haired girl exchange a knowing glance. Without hesitation, he sticks the bottle into the redhead's mouth, catching her completely off guard. She swallows the milk, and instantly, her eyes widen as she feels her power soaring without any training. The protagonist grins, then runs off saying he's going to grab a bite to eat, too. While the sisters finish the rest of the milk, their mother is seen meditating peacefully, until her son suddenly barges in. With an exasperated sigh, she scolds him, calling him a greedy little brat whose appetite never seems to end. 3 weeks later, the protagonist studies a glowing system screen, wondering if he's reached his limit. A new notification appears, informing him of a fresh skill. He mutters in disbelief, questioning if he's about to be turned into a host. For a moment, he even considers whether recovering his strength would mean going through another 9 months in the womb. But then he realizes this new skill isn't just about survival, it can also be used as a deadly weapon. The system shows him an illustration, revealing how the technique can be unleashed directly against his enemies. Then the door creaks open, and suddenly, both sisters step inside, their expressions sharp and determined, ready to begin the plan. And that's it for today's recap. If you enjoyed this manhwa and want to see the next part, don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss it. Also, drop a comment with the best manhwa you'd like me to cover next. I'm always checking your suggestions. Until then, check out the 4 newest recaps already on the channel, you'll definitely love them. Thanks so much for watching and supporting. See you in the next video?